Welcome to Life, Love, and Therapy. I am Jumi Olawale. This show is about learning tips, advice, and ideas about how to improve our lives and relationships from the viewpoint of a therapist. I'm so excited to be back. I had a short hiatus. I was out in Europe on vacation with my family, and it's so nice to be back. Today, I would like to talk and focus on toxic relationships. If you have been following me on social media, you would have seen that I have been talking about toxic relationships. As a matter of fact, I have a series going on right now where I talked about toxic mothers, toxic fathers, and I have another one coming up on toxic siblings. Since I started this series on toxic relationships, I have had so many people reach out to me on social media, on Instagram and on Facebook, in my inbox, letting me know about what they are dealing with their family members, with friends, and all the toxic relationships that they have been in. And I realized that it really hit a nerve for a lot of people. So I decided that I'm going to go ahead and do a podcast on this particular topic because I know that everyone isn't on Facebook, everyone isn't on Instagram, and everyone isn't going to have access to those live shows that I do every Thursday. But if you are on Facebook and Instagram, I do have a live show every Thursday where I talk about different topics, and I hope that at some point you'll be able to join us. I want to focus on toxic relationships today. Toxic relationships can take so many forms. They can include our parents. What I mean by that is mothers, fathers, siblings, children, in-laws. In toxic relationships, what tends to happen is that the people do things that are so harmful and so hurtful, and they are very unaware of the impact of their behavior on us. So if we're to take parents, for example, which I've covered on mothers and fathers, what you notice in toxic parenting is a parent that is so focused on themselves rather than focusing on the health of their children. They're extremely selfish. They tend to only look out for their own well-being. They can cause a lot of triangulation between children. Sometimes they will pick a favorite and they will turn the children, against each other. Parents who are toxic tend to be very highly critical of their children. It is really difficult to please this type of parent. What you notice with children of toxic parents is they tend to be validation seekers in their lives because it's very hard for them to get validation from their parents. Toxic parents have probably experienced some kind of trauma in their lives and they have not addressed it, and they don't even know how to meet the need of their own child because they have not had their own needs be met. A lot of times when people grow up in toxic environments, the children in that environment don't even know that that environment is toxic until they grow up and they realize that other family or friends live a different life, and then they start to compare and they realize that their experience in childhood is very different from other people. When you have a toxic parent, they usually tend to focus a lot on their needs and how they look to the public rather than the way that the children in their household feel. Toxic people have one thing in common. They tend to project their own issues on to the innocent bystanders. What I mean by that is whatever issue that is going on for them internally, they tend to blame it on the innocent child, on the innocent bystanders. Whether it's a toxic friend, whether it's a toxic partner, whether it's a toxic child, whether it's a toxic parent, whether it's toxic siblings or toxic in-laws, they tend not to take responsibility for their actions. All of the problems that they have is your fault. They lack judgment, they lack insight, and as a result of that, they can be difficult to deal with. So if you are someone that have toxic people in your life, this podcast is really focused at addressing how you can deal with such people and such relationship. I want to start with the idea of blood is thicker than water. I think the family members sometimes get away with hurting us, abusing us, and treating us really badly because they have claim to blood. I completely disagree with the idea that blood is thicker than water. I believe that family that hurt you, whether intentionally or unintentionally, if they are threatening your safety, then they are not good for you. I don't care whether they are blood or they are not. Being blood, being a family member is not licensed for abuse. I think that it can be very difficult when we have family and they are the toxic ones and they're very abusive and they hurt us in such unimaginable ways for us to pull away from them because we have a society that really elevates such relationship. And I do believe that we should elevate our relationships with our family. But when that family is filled with people who are toxic and abusive and very hurtful and they don't have insight, then I strongly suggest that you find a way to either remove yourself from that situation or create distance in that relationship. Being blood means that they also think about your feelings, that they also take into account that they are there to help you to grow, to become everything that you're supposed to be, to support you, to love you, not to compete with you, not to put you down, not to always look for ways to sabotage your success, not to always look for ways to put you down and criticize you. That's not what family is for. And if you are a member of a family where they're always criticizing, they're always putting you down, they're never supportive of you, then that is a toxic family or that is a toxic person that is in your life. And no, blood does not give them a license to do that. People get away with so much because they are family members, but they don't have to. And you do not need to continue to tolerate abuse because somebody is your family member. So what do you do when you are in a relationship with a toxic person or toxic persons? I always say that boundary is a form of self-care and a way to maintain your own sanity. If you are going to deal with family members or friends or people in your life that are toxic, it is absolutely essential that you do some work on boundary, okay? Because boundary is going to save your life. Boundary is going to give you your sanity back. And what does boundary mean? Boundary means simple respect for what is okay for you and what is not okay for you. So that requires your own internal work. What are the things that you expect from a relationship? If you could pick and choose, what do you expect from a relationship? You need to think about what those standards are when you are looking to get into an intimate relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. You always think about what is important for you to have health in that relationship. Family members are not exempt from this. If you have family members, whether they are your parents or your siblings or your in-laws, and they are toxic and they are not respectful and they're always looking for ways to undercut you, creating boundaries in that relationship is absolutely essential. And that means understanding what is working for you and what is not working for you, calling it out when you need to and stepping back when you need to. Something else that you need to think about is not having power struggles with people who are toxic. I'm telling you that power struggles with people who are toxic actually feed their toxicity. Toxic people have no problems with really engaging in dirty fighting. They have no problem with really engaging in power struggles. They have no problem really engaging in drama. Actually, it fuels them. And it's a way again for them to prove that they are good, you are bad, and projecting on you. So what I usually say is, not my circus, not my monkey. If there are certain situations in your family that you know can be explosive, that you know is going to set off that toxic person, avoid it at all costs. If you're going to be in a conversation with them, if you're going to be in a family gathering with them, love them where they are. You don't need to continuously engage in this power struggle because you're not going to win. When have you ever won a power struggle with them? They are very good at it, okay? They are very good at sidestepping. They're very good at ignoring their own actions and the ensuing consequences of that on other people. And you are not just going to show up one day having arguments with them and they're going to have this amazing epiphany and they're just going to be like, oh yeah, what you're saying is right. Oh yeah, absolutely. What I've been doing is wrong. Except the person has taken the time to go to therapy, to find coaching, or to read books so that they can get insight into how their behavior impacts others. Honestly, you're not going to win a power struggle with them. So avoid it at all costs. If you find yourself wanting to get into those, remind yourself of this: not my circus, not my monkey. Why do you need to engage in that power struggle? Why is it important for you to be right? You need to do that internal work yourself, because ultimately, if whatever is going on, whatever that conversation is, does not right now threaten your safety, does not right now threaten your future, drop it. Don't bother with it. You are not going to win it. And by the time you're done arguing with them, you're going to go home, you're going to feel like crap, and you're going to be like, what the heck is wrong? You're going to be angry with yourself for saying things that you didn't mean to say. You're going to be mad at yourself for not saying things that you wish you had said. And you're going to be mad at the person because they always do this. So let it go. Power struggle only feed toxic people. Something else that I encourage you to do is to think about distancing yourself. We don't always have to cut toxic people off. That is not necessary. Honestly, empathy is important here when we're thinking about toxic people in our lives, because whatever it is that is making them behave the way they're behaving means that something must have happened to them at some point in their lives. And having an understanding of what that is will be absolutely essential in the way that you interact with them, in the way that you build empathy with them. You can have empathy and still have boundaries, okay? Having empathy for someone's wounds, having empathy for someone's trauma does not give license for abuse. It just helps you in the way that you interact with them. It helps you to understand where they're coming from, but it in no way, shape, or form absolve them of responsibility. All right. If you understand why they are the way they are, if you understand their stories, it will make it easier for you, one, to set boundaries, two, to have empathy, and three, to create distance rather than cutting them off. Creating distance will mean that not always engaging in every family fight that shows up. It means that not always going home every single holiday. It will mean that even if you go home for a holiday, you don't have to be there for an entire week. Maybe you might be there for 2 days or 1 day. It might even mean that you go home for a few hours. It might mean that you cut back on the phone calls. It might mean that you just don't engage in the drama that is always unfolding in their lives. You don't always have to cut people off, even if they are toxic. You just need to understand what issues belong to you and what issues belong to them. If you have an understanding of what your issues are, what your monkey is, what your circus is, then you know how and when to engage. If you don't figure that part out, you're always going to be constantly being pulled into one issue or another, especially as the toxic people in your life, maybe if they get sick or if they get old, if they're on their dying bed, or if there's some kind of big thing that is going on in your life. Maybe you're getting married or you're having children. There are going to be times in your life that you are going to feel terrible about distancing yourself from them, that you're going to feel terrible for cutting them off. And so I want you to know that if you feel bad, if you feel guilty, if you feel sad for creating distance between you and a toxic person, understand that the guilt that you're experiencing is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that the hardwiring that you had growing up in that environment is still alive and well. It is pulling at you. Remember that when you grew up in a toxic home, you've been baptized in toxicity. And really, that's a lot of what you know. And you're trying to create something new. You're trying to create something a little bit more healthy. And it's not the knee-jerk reaction anymore, right? Because the knee-jerk reaction is the toxicity. When you want to get healthy in your life, you're going to feel pulled by the old ways of reacting, the old ways of thinking, the old ways of engaging. And just because you're getting married married or you are having children or there are big things going on in your life. You are at a crossroads and you are longing for this person or these people, these toxic folks that have been in your life for so long. You have to remind yourself that that longing is part of your hardwiring. That longing is part of the belief system that families should always be supportive, that they will always be there for us. They will always love us. They will always be people that we can rely on. Okay, but you need to challenge those ways of thinking because family members are not always there for us. Family members are not always loving. Family members are not always giving. Family members are not always charitable. Family members are not always healthy. If we think in that way, then we need to really break it down into smaller pieces. Family members are human beings. Human beings come in different hues. Okay, human beings come in different flavors. And human beings are born into different environments that shape who they become. And just because that you happen to be born in a family with other human beings, or they happen to be born into your family, does not mean that they're going to share the same values, that they're going to feel the same way that you feel. Really unpacking the idea of what family should be, those expectations are going to be extremely important, so that when you come to those crossroads and you are really upset because you want to reach out to that toxic person, remind yourself that if you continue to try to get close to them, you are going to constantly be hurt because they are spewing so much of their pain that whenever you come near it, you're going to get burned. Someone that has not worked on their issues, someone that has not worked on their trauma is like someone that is literally burning and they're set ablaze and you're trying to hug that person, you are going to get burned. You're going to get consumed in it. So it is essential that you find and you create your own community of friends and you create a community that will be loving towards you, that will appreciate you, that will lift you up, and that will be there for you. And they can become the family that you choose. Understand that guilt is okay. Understand that that guilt is a form of grieving, okay? That you are grieving the family that you never had. You've got to come to the realization that that person may never change, because if they don't have the time or the insight to look into their issues, then the probability of change might be slim to none. And if that's the case, then you may need to grieve the fact that that mother, that father, that sister that you want, the image that you've created in your mind about who they should be, may never come to fruition. You may need to grieve that that person that you want is not the person that is in front of you. It reminds me of when people are in relationships, toxic marriages, abusive relationships, and they are so attracted to the potential of their partner rather than the person that is in front of them. That person that shows up that is nice once in a blue moon, and they see that person and they're like, yes, if I could multiply this, and really extend it in time, this is the person that I believe that you are, that believe that you can be. But unfortunately, you need to really look at who they are most of the time. And if the parent, if that sibling, if that in-law, most of the time are toxic, are hurtful, criticize you, don't want the best for you, don't support you, then that is who they are. And right now, you need to decide for yourself, your family, and your future moving forward that it ends with you. You cannot create a new story when you're still so attached to your past. You cannot create a new path for your future when you keep looking back. You cannot start something new, something fresh, something healthy when you're still anchored to toxicity. You have got to create distance between you and those toxic people. And sometimes you might need to read some books. Sometimes you might need to get in therapy. Sometimes you might need to find a coach. But whatever it is for you, today make a decision that the toxicity ends right here with you. You don't have to live like that. You don't have to tolerate that. You don't have to be abused. From now on, it can change. And I encourage you to reach out to me via social media, whether it's through Instagram or Facebook. Send me an inbox message. Let me know how I can support you. You don't have to do it alone. Get into therapy, get yourself some coaching, and understand that their toxicity does not define who you are. Just because they think that you're a bad person, just because they project their own insecurities on you, does not mean that that is who you are. That is it for this episode. Thank you for joining. If you're looking for ways to help this show, please leave a nice review and recommend this podcast to your friends. Also, don't forget to like me on Facebook at Jumi Olawale Therapy and Counseling, and follow me on Instagram at Jumi Olawale The Therapist. If you have any topics that you would like me to cover on this podcast, please reach out to me via Facebook or Instagram, and you can also send me an email to jumiolawale@gmail.com. This is your host, Jumi Olawale. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.